In the previous part, we went down together into the darker layers of the world, crossed the river Styx, listened to the footsteps of souls in Hades, and came to understand how the Greeks saw death as a necessary part of the order of the cosmos. Now, let us gently step back up to the surface, where the sun still rises every morning, and look around. While the souls quietly descend, on the world above another story is beginning. The story of a gentle yet profound passing of the torch from Greece to Rome. Imagine you are standing on an ancient harbor, where wooden sailing ships creak softly in the sound of waves. On one side of the sky lies the jagged Greek coastline, with its small city-states like Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Thebes. Each polis is its own little world, with a theater, a public square, philosophers sitting in the shade of olive trees, arguing about the soul and the cosmos. On the other side, hazy in the mist, is the Italian peninsula, where the Latin villages are still rough, the roads are red dirt, the farmers are plowing their fields, and soldiers are drilling on a hill called Roma. In those centuries, no one knew that one day the name Rome would thunder across the whole Mediterranean. And no one imagined that Greek mythology, those stories of Zeus, Athena, Apollo, would one day don a Roman cloak, take on new names, and step into a different phase of existence. Everything began very quietly, like a change in the direction of the wind that no one notices at first. At the beginning, the gods of the Romans were very different from the gods of the Greeks. The old Latin deities were not sharply drawn characters with faces and personalities like Zeus, Hera, or Hermes. They were invisible forces tied to work, the seasons, boundaries, hearth, and home. There was a god who watched the doorway, a god who guarded the fields, a god who kept the family safe. Roman religion at that time was like a network of silent rules, more than a collection of romantic tales on mountaintops. But then, from the south of Italy, the Greeks arrived. They founded coastal cities, trading colonies where ships came and went, where goods, wine, pottery, writing, and also stories flowed through. From there, a very strange current began to move, the current of imagination. Picture a Roman merchant holding for the first time an exquisitely painted Greek vase in his hands. On it, he sees a young man standing beneath a tree with a lyre in his hands. That is Orpheus. On another vase, Heracles wrestles with the Nemean lion. At first, for him, these might be nothing more than beautiful images for decoration. But little by little, the images become stories. The Greeks explain, "This is our hero, this is our god, this is how we make sense of fear, of courage, of love, and loss." In the taverns by the harbor, on the decks of ships waiting for wind, there must have been evenings like that. A Greek sailor telling a young Roman about Zeus and his thunderbolts, about Athena appearing in the dreams of warriors, about a Troy in flames, and that young Roman, raised in a society that prized discipline, warfare, and law, suddenly realizes there is another kind of power, the power of a story. Then Rome grows. The city is no longer just a village on a hill. Stone roads begin to radiate outward, and the Roman army gradually becomes one of the most disciplined machines in history. But in the military camps, amid the campaign maps, Greeks are there too. They are prisoners, teachers, slaves of the mind. They bring into Rome a language, a philosophy, an art, and mythology. A Roman general returning from a campaign in southern Italy might bring back to Rome not only silver and gold, but statues of gods, books, priests, poets. At first, these are merely spoils of war, but over time, they become something the Roman elite can no longer live without. A boy from a Roman noble family will learn Greek as a second language, read Homer the way children today read storybooks, and debate philosophy with a teacher who is a Greek. And when a new generation of Roman elites is raised like that, they begin to see something. We are strong in discipline, law, organization. But the Greeks are strong in thought, in story, in asking, what is a human being? If these two strengths meet, they think, we can build a world even greater than before. From there, a process of blending begins. The Greek gods are gradually naturalized as Romans. Zeus becomes Jupiter. No longer just the one who hurls lightning from Olympus. He is now seen as the patron of the city of Rome, of the state, of political oaths. Zeus's thunderbolts, in Jupiter's hands, become a symbol of state power and of sacred law. Hera becomes Juno, goddess of marriage in a Roman society that places great weight on family, lineage, honor. If in Greece Hera is often jealous, chasing after Zeus's lovers, then in Rome, Juno is seen as the solemn embodiment of the role of wife and mother, the moral pillar of the household. Athena transforms into Minerva. She is still wisdom, still the arts, but Minerva no longer carries the wild edge of the Athenian warrior maiden. She wears instead the gravity of an administrative city, where senators debate, laws are written, military campaigns are calculated. Minerva is Athena in a Roman toga. Apollo remains Apollo, the god of light, music, prophecy. But when he comes to Rome, he sits closer to the idea of order. Temples of Apollo, built next to Roman baths and theaters, give the sense that beauty is not just a passing emotion, but something constructed, framed, and organized. The Romans do not say, your gods are wrong and ours are right. They say, this god of yours, he is quite similar to this god of ours. We can treat them as one. It is a very subtle art, the art of assimilation without denial. They do not erase the Greek gods. They give them Roman names, a place in the Roman system, a social function in Roman life. At a deeper level, they are doing what any wise empire must do, using myth to explain its own existence. The Greeks built their story with myth and philosophy. The Romans received that mythology, revised it, added a few new chapters, then used it as a spiritual skeleton for their empire. If the Trojan War in Greek hands is a tragedy of pride, of love, of fate, then in Rome another story is woven from those ashes. This is the story of Aeneas, the hero who survives when Troy falls. Aeneas carries his old father on his back, leads his son by the hand, and brings along the little household gods of his family as he walks away from the burning city. The Greeks tell of him as one among countless figures. The Romans say, instead, he is our spiritual ancestor. When Virgil writes the Aeneid, he is not merely writing poetry. He is creating a thread that runs from Greek myth to Rome. Aeneas is blown off course, wanders, meets Queen Dido, and then leaves her, comes to Italy, fights battles, and founds a line. From that line, many generations later, come Romulus and Remus, then the city of Rome, then the emperors. Thanks to that, the Roman Empire is not just a political fact. It becomes a story imbued with myth. That is an important lesson. Any community, from a tiny family to a vast nation, if it wants to endure, needs more than food and weapons. It needs a story to tell itself and the world. Who are we? Where do we come from? For what do we exist? The Greeks built such a story with myth and philosophy. The Romans took that mythology, edited it, added new chapters, and used it as a spiritual framework for their empire. In everyday life, This transfer shows up in very concrete ways. A Roman family might offer sacrifice to Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, but in their home they hang a painting of Heracles killing the lion, or keep a little statue of Hermes, now called Mercury, the god of trade and exchange. A Roman poet might write of Venus and call her the mother of his people, because Aeneas is her son. Roman merchants sailing across the sea pray to Neptune, who is really Poseidon, for protection. All of this happens naturally, just as we today borrow foreign words without really thinking about whose they are. Rome conquers Greece with sword and spear, but is conquered in reverse by Greek language and imagination. It is a beautiful paradox. On the outside, Roman legions march across Greek soil. On the inside, in the minds of Roman generals, senators, and intellectuals, live Greek verses, ideas of soul, fate, beauty, and tragedy. An empire can use power to redraw maps, and at the same time be quietly reshaped from within by the books it has brought home. If we zoom out, we see Greece and Rome as two halves of a single person. Greece is the dreaming soul, always asking why, sensitive to beauty, haunted by tragedy. Rome is the strong body, always asking how, skilled at building roads, making laws, running the machine. When Tahumdime these two halves meet, we get a Greco-Roman civilization that lasts for centuries, leaving its imprint on architecture, law, literature, and philosophy. An imprint we are still living with today, even if we rarely call it by name. In our own personal lives, we can also see ourselves reflected there. Sometimes we are like Greece, full of dreams and beautiful ideas, fond of reading and imagining, but slow to act. Sometimes we are like Rome, very good at organizing, making money, planning, but hollow inside, lacking a story that makes us feel our life is meaningful. The lesson that this Greek-Roman transfer suggests is, do not choose only one. Learn to let the Greek in you, sensitivity, soul story, be supported by the Roman in you, discipline, structure, action. Back to the empire. As Rome grows stronger, the Greek gods become so Romanized that if you lived there you might not even distinguish the boundary anymore. You would simply know that your world is full of gods. Jupiter above, Juno guarding the family, Minerva guiding thought, Neptune watching the sea, Venus present in love affairs, Mars in the camp, Mercury on the trade roads. You walk on newly paved stone streets, pass under triumphal arches wreathed in carved garlands, and above you are reliefs of Heracles, Perseus, Theseus, Aeneas. The Romans remain themselves, practical, sometimes ruthless, very gifted at administration. But above all, they have learned the value of letting stories larger than themselves live alongside them. Those stories do not force Rome to stop being Roman. They simply make it deeper, richer, more many-sided. At this point, we can pause a little to look back on this journey as a long curve of memory. Greek myth is born among small tribes who look up at the sky and ask, where do we come from? Then those stories are refined through the mouths of poets, through the stage of tragedy, through the pages of historians. They spread to Rome, blend into a vast empire wearing armor, crowns, and codes of law. But wherever they go, they preserve one thing: the ability to help humans face time, to face the fact that every city will someday fall, every empire will someday pass away, but beautiful stories can go on, as long as there is someone to retell them. In modern life, we can clearly see the traces of this transfer. When we look up at the night sky, we name the planets in Latin: Mars, Venus, Jupiter. But behind each of those Latin names is an old Greek face: Ares, Aphrodite, Zeus. When we walk through an ancient archway and gaze at white columns, we are looking at Roman architecture, but the silhouette of Athens stands there too. When we read a novel or watch a film about a hero marked by fate, a young man leaving home to seek a promised land, a city destroyed by pride, we are still hearing the old themes, told in a new language. The transfer from Greece to Rome shows us a rule: whatever truly has meaning does not disappear. It only changes form. Greek myth did not die on the seashore when Rome raised its banners. It merely stepped down from Olympus, walked along the Roman stone roads, changed its name and its clothes, and went on whispering in the ears of new generations. And perhaps in your own life, there are also old myths waiting to be carried into a new Rome, a new context, a new way of living, a new stage of maturity. The dreams of your youth, the questions you used to ask, the feelings you thought you had forgotten, they do not necessarily have to vanish. They can find a new language, a new form, just as Zeus became Jupiter, Athena became Minerva, and Troy became the starting point for Aeneas. In this part, we have only stopped at halfway along the road, at the place where Greece and Rome shake hands, trade gods, change names, and together write a long chapter of Western history. But the journey of the gods does not end there. Before them, another wave is rising: skeptical philosophy, then monotheistic religion, then Christianity. Those forces will not only rename the gods, they will ask a sharper question: do we still need many gods at all? That is the story of the centuries that follow, when the temples slowly empty out, when philosophers begin to dismiss myth as childish, when an invisible god appears and Olympus grows faint in the mists of faith. But that will be a story for another night, when you are once again ready to lie back, close your eyes, and let the old tales carry you along another stretch of the history of the human spirit. For now, it may be enough to gently remember this: some things do not disappear, they only change their shape.